Benchracer's Guild podcast.
How many races you been to with a giraffe? That's
0, but it's giving me good ideas now.
We're making jumps out of manure piles and stuff.
If you stay alone there at night, so the coyotes are gonna attack you.
I've always told everybody, if you can't fix it with a hammer, you have an electrical problem.
And now, your hosts, Alan Delman and Adam Swanson.
Welcome to the Benchracer's Guild podcast. I'm Alan.
And I don't have Adam with me for this episode. Actually, he's on a well-deserved vacation in the Adirondacks. I already took my vacation, and I have a story about that. But anyway, I already took my vacation, and I actually released an episode while I was on vacation, which is kind of interesting. We did some trickery with the timing of recording and scheduling releases. So I was on vacation, an episode came out, I got to listen to my way home. Anyway, so for this episode, I am here with Chris, who you know. Hey, Chris.
Hey, what up, everybody?
You guys know Chris. He comes on with us sometimes. If we have a guest that he knows, or if we need somebody to be funny, and I couldn't do this by myself. For this episode, we also have, he's Elcar's ADV on YouTube, does a bunch of adventure bike stuff, and a GPX motorcycle enthusiast, I guess we'll call him. Say hi to Mr. Warren Yeager. Hey, Warren.
Hey, guys, what's up?
So Warren is with us because he also rode the Michaux DS with Adam and I, which we're going to talk about in this episode. Real quick, I wanted to mention that we have a new intro. You probably heard it if you listened to, I think it was actually the last episode we put it on. But yeah, there's a new intro to the show. So give that a listen. See if you recognize your favorite episodes from there. Chris is in there.
Yeah.
And I think there's a little bit of Adam and Bart Lucas in there. Some stuff we did with one-liner from the episode we did with Nick DeSalvo and one-liner from the episode we did with Jose Lozada. They're pretty good. We were kind of like cherry picking through best moments for the intro. So,
and most of my stuff, my rants get edited out anyways.
Probably for good reason.
Yeah, definitely.
content purposes. But so what we kind of wanted to start with this episode was a recap of the Michaux DS, which was June 18th in 2022, and that was on a Saturday. It was we did, so Chris and I did a recap of the 2021 version of it, and we also talked to Marco Santa from DVTR. He's the president of the club. That was done on November 18th, 2021. So if you want to go back and listen to that episode where we talked to DVTR and talk to Marco about the way the club does things and how it works, that's a good one to listen to if you haven't heard it, because that gives you some context on the way the event was run this year. So anyways, Michaux was on the 18th of June, and it was on a Saturday. That's the first big change, because previously they had done their one-day event on Sundays, and most races are on Sunday, and most events that are one-day events are on Sunday. And DVTR seems to kind of like look at the way things are done, and if they can't find a good reason why things are done the way they're done, they do things differently. Hence doing it on a Saturday. So
way better.
Yeah, I agree.
Way better.
I like that
I
change.
agree. Saturday was way better. Plus, if you do it on a Sunday, if you're driving from 3-4 hours away like I was, or 5 hours away like I was, you're getting home real late, and then you got to go to work the next day. So
Yeah.
That's exactly it. That's what we did previous years. I mean, we would drive down on Saturday and we would come home on Sunday after the ride. And that meant you ride all day and then you drive home all night, all day and into the night, which was fine. I mean, it's no big deal. But it was cool to, like ride Saturday and then kind of like go back to where we were staying and just kind of relax Saturday night. And I know Warren got the hell out of there Sunday morning. Adam and his wife Jessica and I did a little bit of Gettysburg on Sunday, and then came home. It was also a 3-day weekend, but yeah, I think we definitely give a big thumbs up to the change to Saturday. We will be plugging this episode on the DVTR group, so I know that Marco and Liz and Morgan and so many other names that I probably don't know will hear this. And yeah, Saturday gets a big thumbs up, especially those of us coming from far away.
What a great group they are too, man. They are so organized. Every event should like copy them. Just
I would agree.
Right down to a T, man. Everything is just dialed in with that club.
And I know you weren't with us this year because of the injury, but I mean, they were the same way. It was the same way as last year and the year before. Like you come in, you say your name, they look up your name, they got another person on a radio, radio ahead, give you your packet. Your packets are all set up. Tech inspection is a breeze. It's very, yeah, I agree. It's very well done. They get a lot of riders. They get a lot of volunteers. They have.
I couldn't believe how many volunteers they had there. It was incredible. It
Yep.
made everything that much smoother too. So
Yeah, they got a great group.
big
Yeah,
shout out to all them guys. They did a great job.
Yes, they definitely did. They pulled from a pretty large geographic area, and they had a lot of people. So it's really cool. Yeah, they do a good job with that event. So the other thing that was neat about that event is we had the route sheet and the map and the GPX file and everything you could possibly want in your rider packet was in your email on Wednesday or Tuesday night, Monday night, actually. So that meant that instead of cutting a route sheet while I'm trying to get ready to go, I cut up the route sheet during my lunch break on Tuesday, had that shit loaded up in my holder, good to go. Get to the event, everything's ready to go. You just put on your gear, put on your bike, and you're out the door.
Yeah.
So
And every club should be doing that too, but they're worried about somebody pre-riding the trail or some bullshit. That's not going to happen.
happen. And the type of person who's going to sign up for an event with a route sheet is not going to. It's ridiculous.
I'm just gonna follow. I'm just gonna follow the guy with the route sheet, honestly. So.
I still get lost.
This time we're following the guy with the route sheet and the GPS. I had both, and I did that mostly just for my own amusement. But
Hey Warren, the trail goes up that big giant hill with the fingertip at the top that you gotta like jump over.
right up the middle of the finger.
Yeah.
Do it.
So the
Track
ride itself,
masters will get me up that, dude.
No, they won't.
Yeah, they will.
especially the worn out ones. I was wondering how long it's been before track masters came. So the ride itself, and I know Chris, you weren't there with us, but you did it last year and the year before, so you pretty much know how it goes. Some things have changed, but it's very similar to previous. So we started the Shippensburg Fairgrounds, which is a huge event, a huge place, a huge venue. Excuse me, geez. And that's a great place to start the event because, there's tons of room. There's tons of people camped out. There was still plenty of room. I mean, it's a fairgrounds. They have
I liked, where we stayed. We stayed at a really nice Airbnb house. It was really awesome, beautiful.
Yeah.
But honestly, I kind of wish maybe we stayed at the fairgrounds just for the camaraderie and because it looked like there's a lot of great people there and a lot of fun. So
that's what I'm thinking. Yeah, I'm thinking next year I might want to try to camp. It just seems like it would be fun.
Yeah, when Warren buys that toy hauler, he could take us all down there.
Bro, I'll do it, and I don't even care. So I'm thinking I might try to camp there next year. I mean, we'll see what we got going on. But yeah, it'll be cool just to stay there. Originally, we had planned on having an Airbnb really nearby, and we got kind of screwed on that. Otherwise, we would have been a lot closer. So, but yeah, I agree. I think the camping.
I think it would have been fun just because you get to meet, new people, and that's what's great about this sport is you really meet the awesomest people, and you get to share your stories and try to one up each other, obviously. But it looked like a lot of fun right there, right in the center.
You could totally tent there too because they have showers and full bathrooms and everything you need. So.
Yep. Yeah, I think that might be the way to go next year, for sure. So what else? So as mentioned, we stayed off site. We came back in pretty early on Saturday morning and we went to the riders meeting and they went through the usual stuff. And then we hit the ride and I think it was about 8:15 or so when we finally got out. I know Chris actually had this entry and he gave it to Warren because of his injury that he still really wasn't recovered from yet. And he told us, told Adam and I, hey, Warren is basically the same speed as you guys. And I was like, yeah, okay, he's the same speed as us, sure. And you don't really know what that means to actually ride with someone. I can tell you that like the three of us for the entire day were never more than like a minute apart, maybe two. So yeah, like literally the same speed almost to the minute. So that was cool because we were always on the same pace. We would go into an option, we'd come out and it was like, oh, there they are. And I got passed a couple times because I was kind of dogging it in some spots, but yeah, it was cool. I agree.
We were right close to each other, pretty much 95% or more of the day. I mean, it was pretty crazy. Like I'm used to doing that with Adam, but I'm not used to doing that with somebody I don't know. So we started. I have the Jeep. Just so if you're listening, I have the map up, so it's not like we're going off the cuff here. But so we started the ride, the Shippensburg Fairgrounds, and you kind of go for some. You do some dirt roads you do some pavement, some gravel roads.
one of my favorite parts of this ride, I mentioned it before, is you driving down, you go right alongside Route 81 for a little while. I can only imagine what the truckers hauling their loads from, hauling their loads up and down 81 from Tennessee or whatever into New York think as they see a couple hundred dirt bikes zipping alongside the road. Like, what the hell's going on over there? Because it was on a Saturday, we did not see any Amish on their way to church, which is also my other favorite part of this ride. When you be like zipping through Shippensburg, it's like there's Jebediah on the horse cart headed off to church on a Sunday morning. But so you do a little bit of dirt road and then pavement, a little bit of dirt road, and then you go into gutter trail. And this one's a C. They call it a C plus option, and I think that's pretty accurate. I thought it was really tight because I believe it's a hiking trail. I'm not exactly sure on that one, but it was cool. It was a good trail, good tight single track, a way to start out for sure. So
I thought that the very first option was probably the most beautiful single track I've ever seen in my entire life. It was completely like adorned with flowers the entire trail, and it was tight single track, but it was just gorgeous. I can't describe it.
Yep.
Well, they planted those flowers for you, Warren.
Is that what they did?
Yeah.
That's true.
Remember the guys who do this, who put on this event are probably going to listen to this, so they can confirm.
Well, not just that, but honestly, it's some of the like really most beautiful trails I've ever seen on the East Coast. I mean, and the trails are just awesome. I mean, beautiful.
Yep.
So a lot of ferns and trees and forests. It was really cool.
I was there last summer for on vacation. We were in Gettysburg, and we went up to Michaux one day just to hike. And one of the trails is not on the route at all. I think it's because it's really close to Appalachian Trail. The Appalachian Trail is probably a big no-no when it comes to riding. But anyways, and yeah, it's all kind of like that. Tons of rock too, which is not surprising because of the other options. But so then you kind of, once you come out of the trail where the flowers were planted for Warren, probably because he's so dainty and beautiful.
I'm very dainty.
There's a lot of there's more dirt road and pavement. There's a gas stop pretty early in, like 19 miles, but and then you kind of continue to head south for a ways, and you eventually end up at the southernmost point, which is still in the forest. And then we come to the second option, which was horse trail. At this point, you've probably done 20 or 25 of 100 miles. So there's the afternoon is heavy on the options. The morning's light on them. There's a total of 10. And I think a bunch of them are in the afternoon. So we come to horse trail, and horse trail, the description says it's a long, beautiful trail and some rocky sections. Now is horse trail the one, Warren, with the big hill where people were getting stuck, or is that the next one? I can't remember.
I don't. It's hard to say. I don't remember exactly what trail that is, but I do remember what hill you were talking about. Is it like a really, really rocky hill?
Yeah, it's a really rocky.
It was quite a bottleneck there.
Yes, it was. Yeah, I think that was the third option, which is Hoofty Heaven. It says very rocky and twistier than horse trail. If that's the one we're thinking of, I would agree with that. So I don't have any specific comment on horse trail, but
first I gotta mention that I got up at okay. But
yeah,
I can't say everybody else did, but I know I did.
So this is one point where I was leading, and then we went through and we noticed that there was kind of a bottleneck there, and we all kind of got separated. I think Warren went first, Adam might have gone second, and I went third. The other thing we should mention is that because it was June and it's southern Pennsylvania, it was pretty dry down there. I think I counted there was I counted a total of 15 puddles in the entire ride. But we rode on Saturday, and Thursday night we had some storms up here in Rochester, but down in southern PA they had some nasty storms. And the forest there were some really bad thunderstorms, like just 36 hours before we got into the forest. Which kind of meant that there were some spots that were kind of sketchy, and I would say that Hoofty Heaven was one of them. Some of those rocks were pretty damn slick, and that hill that we're talking about, I got probably maybe halfway up, and I got stuck.
Adam went up first, and he got stuck halfway. And,
okay.
I think it was just that it was a little slippery. Yeah, so I remember some of the. One of the first options was that people are getting stuck in this. It looked really easy, but then you saw people get through. Their tires were just slipping everywhere. Yeah. And then that one there, the rocks were so large. I think it was just deflecting everybody everywhere. And
They were,
And,
yeah,
you know,
that's what happened. to me.
once you lose your momentum, you're done. So.
Well,
Yep,
plus
that's
when you got
exactly
your
what
track masters with 30
Oh
psi.
no! I had the cheaters on there. You're gonna have the track
Perfect.
masters in another
I
month.
had,
So.
I believe I had the Tusk hybrid, which did pretty well too, except for there. But I think that was just a competence issue, not necessarily a tire issue. So the thing I remember about this hill that we're talking about is I got stuck, and I was like dropped my bike like 3 times, and I kind of, you know, maybe was yelling a little bit in frustration. Some guys from Philly.
I learned some new words that day.
some guys with Reading off-road rider shirt on, big tall guy with a very thick Philly accent. He came over there and he helped me get up there, and then we saw them later at lunch, and I was like, oh hey, thanks for picking up my bike. Like, he goes, oh, that was you? I go, yeah. He goes, yeah, we ended up turning around and going back. I'm like, oh well, I guess that I helped you then. So yeah, they helped me get out of there. Was much appreciated. Thank you for that. Helped me get out of there. So then we moved on from that option, and you kind of jump into the road for a very, very little bit, and you move on to Newman Tower, and that's a C option, and I don't remember particularly much about that one. This is a BC split. It says there's an off-camber uphill, but I don't remember anything in there that was particularly difficult. So
The only thing I got stuck up on I think it was the grave what's trail, the one with the
Grave Ridge. Yep.
Yeah, I got on the first hill going up there. There's like a root up there, and I got stuck up on that root, and that was like the only time, probably the entire day, that I got hung up with I just got stuck on the root, and that was it.
Yeah, I would agree. It was, most of the stuff was not that hard to do. I mean,
you made it up though. I remember you made it up just fine.
Yeah, I made it. I knew it was coming, and that might be why. Because they did it last year, and it went in the same direction. That's option 9, Grave Ridge, and yeah, that was crazy. That apparently, and this, we talked about this when we did it last year, Chris. This says that this is ATV trail. I don't know what psycho takes an ATV up that thing. I think you would need 4-wheel drive, and like I know
you get enough beer and you playing your country rap, you'll do anything.
Yeah,
well,
I know.
They got their sister on the back for ballast, so the beer cooler on the front, the sister on the back, plenty of traction.
You got the boom box and the LED lights, the strobe
light. Yep. The rainbow LED lights.
What I was about to say is that I know we pick on quad riders, but I don't know how you actually get up that on a quad. I have no freaking idea. Maybe 4-wheel drive, that might be cheating, but yeah, that's that one was
honestly
tricky.
I think the biggest thing about Grave Ridge is just picking the right line. I mean,
it's true.
If you pick the right line, I think you'll be okay. I think it just looks harder than it is, and I think people probably get intimidated by it.
Yeah, I think that's probably accurate.
And they label those trails pretty good, right? Those options are labeled pretty accurately. So like a C is really a C, and a B is really a B.
I thought they did. Unlike the Seven Mountains dual sport last year, they totally labeled that one wrong, and it was like they had stuff in there that was like A options they were calling C and whatever. But I think they accurately labeled stuff. Really, they did a good job marking the trails and labeling the difficulty, I thought.
Yeah, the way I think that works is they just send out armies to each section and they just mark stuff. And obviously somebody has to run mileage for the whole thing, but there was some cool trail in there for sure. So we come out of, the more, we kind of dipped into the afternoon options a little bit, but we come to the, I think at some point we went through a couple more options. Looks like Piney Ridge and Newman Tower. And then we come to, there was a really long quad trail, which I thought was nice too. I think it was actually an access road, a forest road. We run around a bunch of gates and stuff, and I'm not exactly sure. Yeah, I know that's like rehab forest roads or whatever they are. We ended up on we did some nice trail that was pretty good. And then we ended up at the snack stop, which had, like we've said previously, just an army of volunteers everywhere. After lunch, you go into some quad trail. We did see a few quads, a few side by sides. I know that's a pretty popular spot for them.
Okay, so the snack stop was in that ATV park again.
Yeah, at Big Flat Lot, which is the same spot it was last year. Yeah,
because I remember pulling out of there and I was like, the trail out of there was like just kind of like 50 feet wide and and dips and stuff, and I was like, oh, only quad tires would like a trail like that. So that makes perfectly sense.
So the way that the state of Pennsylvania is set up with their public land use is a little bit different than New York, where New York basically just says, hey, screw you, nobody's allowed anywhere. But the way the state of Pennsylvania is set up is that they have designated areas for designated uses. So like hikers can go pretty much anywhere. Horse people can go most places. Mountain bikers can go most places. Motorized use, it's said there are certain areas that are designated for certain use. So like Bald Eagle State Forest is designated for dual sport plated motorcycles, and you're allowed in there, and you can do whatever you want there. But ATVs are not allowed there. Michaux is one of the places that is designated for ATVs and I believe snowmobiles. Which I don't really think they get that much snow down there to begin with, but maybe they do. So, so that's why you see the ATVs. That's also the only reason that the only time motorcycles, are in there is during this event, because technically not allowed there. Obviously, if you want to ride the roads, you can do that anytime you want because you're a plated vehicle. You could do that, but I mean, I drove my Subaru down most of those last year, so it's not really that interesting.
One thing I have to mention about this group here in the ride is how cool it is to see how many female riders there were.
Yes.
I mean, I was blown away. I mean, not for nothing, a ponytail out of a helmet is just hot, but but anyway, I was just really encouraged to see how many female riders there were, and it's great for the sport because the more women that get involved, it makes it safer. For the non-riders, they just see it as like, oh, okay, well, women are riding it, so it's not as bad as they say it is, for the environment and the trails and all that stuff. So I'm really encouraged by that. It was good to see.
If you jump on the DVTR Facebook page, you could see like all the girls that you were talking about. They're constantly posting. They're always doing different rides and different races. So they're pretty active in the whole sport altogether.
That Facebook group seems awesome. I've seen their posts. I think they're hilarious a lot of times, and I think it's a very good group of people. I kind of wish we all lived down there, honestly.
Yeah. It's a good club, and they're like all ages, mostly younger. Like some of the rides you go on, they're a bunch of old guys that do everything old school, and sign up as everything's done on like a pen and paper, and you don't get to ride until 10 o'clock, and they don't give you the route sheet until you sign up. And it's just this group is pretty on point with everything. They're dialed in. Everything is so easy to do as far as paperwork and sign up wise. I wish that they're limited at like 300 riders or whatever, and that's based on the state because they got to go through state lands and stuff like that. I wish they could get more riders in there because it sells out in like 3 minutes. It's crazy how fast.
I wish they could put another 100 riders or something on there. It'd be nice.
Yeah. Maybe. I mean, they do such a good job because after the ride, they have to go back and basically rake every part of their off-road trails. They have to rake it and return it back to the way it was before they got there. And that's a hell of a lot of work, and it takes a lot of people. So maybe they could get some more members in, and maybe in the future they can get some more riders in there. But, try to get more than 300 people to go through there. It would just cause more damage. And I think that's why they limit it to like that. 300.
Yeah, they also have to pull. Marco told us that as of 2021, they not only have to rake everything back, they also have to pull staples out of trees. So what I was gonna say is that they are pretty strict about about remediation and what has to be done there. But
so every arrow, every staple, that's a lot of work.
Yep. But I think that they've done a good job of doing all that. It's kind of a model, and I agree with you. It's probably the best run event that I've been to, and that includes some of the ones that I helped put on, by the way. Again, my opinions on the podcast are my own. I represent myself in the podcast only, but I think they do a really, really good job. So they definitely have a formula figured out that I wish others would follow.
I'll be signing up next year. That's for sure. I was it's probably one of my favorite rides I've ever done. So
this was
good.
Yeah, this was my.
You just got to get up and you got to be like on the computer when sign up opens, and you got to be ready to go.
7 p.m. or you need to sponsor them, and then you can get in as a sponsor. That's the other way you can do it.
There you go. A little
That's
Cars ADV sponsorship.
Yeah, we actually talked to them about that for the podcast, but we never actually got it done. So I don't know what it takes to get that done. But yeah, I mean, I know that they have a team.
Well,
an executive
GPX was
team.
a sponsor this year. I got to see them. I got to meet them there, so that was nice to see.
That's right. Yeah.
Where'd you have to go for that? China?
Shippensburg, Pennsylvania.
Nice.
No,
Oh, so they had a dealer there with a bunch of demos or something?
Yeah, I don't know if he was like letting people ride him there, but he had a bunch of bikes with him, and he had a tent set up, and he's the regional rep for him. He basically helps dealers get started up and stuff like that. So he was just there to kind of represent, and people have questions or whatever.
Cool.
So I got to meet him. His name's Harlan. He's a really cool dude. So,
and I think he rode the event too, right? Didn't he also ride the event? I remember him saying that.
He didn't know he was riding it because he was sold out, and they let him ride because he was a sponsor.
Yep. Yeah. So I think that the count of 300 probably does not include the club members and the sponsors. So that might be why it's the rider count is limited to 300, but the actual attendee count is probably a little bit higher. But I feel like these are all questions that'll get answered when someone from the club listens to this and they're commenting on a Facebook post about it. It's like this, and this.
I can only imagine the line that was lined up for Warren to get like autographs. Everybody's boobs and stuff. So.
About as long as the line for me and Adam. But so to keep us on the trails here, I know we can get to this stuff.
I'm so glad you weren't there. Everybody we were running into, you're like, oh my god, it's Cars ADV. Oh my gosh.
At the Benchracer, these guys are awesome.
Yeah.
With no way to tell who you are on your bike, nobody knows, nobody cares.
Yeah.
Nobody cares.
So Alan, you left off at pretty much at the lunch break. You guys were in the Quad Tard Park. Yep. So were you guys able to rip wheelies and show off to some quad tards? Were a lot of people out there?
There wasn't that many. There wasn't that many at all. But so then we went into Fender. We went into Fender Trail, Junk Pile Trail, which is a lot of rocks. That's a lot of rocks. That was probably, I think actually that might have been, for me anyway, that may have been the hardest part of the day. Just because it was.
I thought one trail where you saw that one girl riding her mountain bike in there and stuff.
Yes, it may have been. Yeah. There was a woman. There was an older woman, probably like close to 50. And I apologize if she was younger, but I really couldn't tell. She had a helmet on. Riding a mountain bike in there by herself too, and she was ripping pretty good. So yep. That definitely was where we saw her. Yeah, thanks. Good. That's a good memory because I don't remember that at all. That was pretty tough. I should also mention that by this point I was already choosing between sitting on the seat and sanding my rear end or standing up and getting arm pump, and we're only like halfway through the day. So at that point this might have something to do with it, but I felt like that part was really tricky. So we came out of Fender Trail, Junk Pile Trail, and I just lost my map. We came out of Fender Trail, Junk Pile Trail, and then we did some roads with some more dirt road. You're in the mountains at this point, so you have to come off the mountain. So in order to come off the mountain, you have to go down through the hills. So we did that. We came into town at Mount Holly Springs, which was the second gas stop. And at this point, you probably needed gas unless you're like an adventure bike with a 5-gallon tank like my other bike is.
Nothing like some gas station pizza sitting in your stomach for the rest of the ride.
There's a debate in Pennsylvania between Sheetz and Wawa. And if you're one of the DVTR listeners out of Philly, you know what that means. And if you're someone in Rochester, you don't care. But and then you get back on the road. And you take the road back into the park, which is actually kind of a long way. You eventually come up Ridge Road, which is what it sounds like. It's, the ridge back into the mountain. And that sucker's long. So last year we did it backwards. And this year we did it forwards. And that was, I'm sure you remember this, Warren, that was the really long dirt road that was like more of a path than anything else. And you just keep going up the hill and up the dirt road. And it's a road, but barely. Like I'm using finger quotes in the air, which you can't see because we're, on a podcast. But I would call that barely a road. I mean, that's probably my least favorite section of the whole thing, if I'm being totally honest, just because I don't know. It's kind of a shitty road, kind of beat to crap. Also, and I don't know who this was, but I'm sure that you probably, if you were involved in the event, you probably know. We saw a guy with his arm in a sling alongside the trail there, which is always unfortunate. I like to see him get hurt.
Oh yes, I know what you're talking about.
I think some guy got hurt last year too, broke his leg or something. I can't remember.
I don't remember either. There's so many people there that stuff's gonna happen, but it still sucks to see.
Mm-hmm.
So you get up into Ridge Road, do like 8 miles on Ridge Road or something like that. And eventually you find yourself at Ridge Trail, which is described as basically, okay, this one's like a BC split. So this one's only 1.25 miles if you take the C route. We took the C route, the BC split, we took the B route. So it says it's a half mile, easy single track, and then another 3/4 of a mile, just much rockier. I would agree with that assessment. Yeah, that's a good one too. That is definitely a fun one. I don't remember anything in particular about that. I remember seeing the split and almost missing it and then taking it. And then you come back out of that trail, you come back in what I believe is some more dirt road. So now you're back in the forest. I think I'm on the wrong side of this. Let's see. Yeah, okay, that's the right side. So you at this point, there's actually another thing that you crossed that has nothing to do with the ride itself, but right before once you're in the park at this point, you actually cross the midpoint of the Appalachian Trail. So the Appalachian Trail is a hiking trail that runs all the way from Georgia all the way up to Maine. And the midpoint is located in Michaux State Forest in central Pennsylvania. We actually go right by the museum for the Appalachian Trail. Just a little historical fact for anyone who was going through and actually cares about that. The actual midpoint is located 8 miles from where the museum is. They kind of thought it was in one place, it's in the other. But anyway, and when we go into, it looks like when we went into Rattlesnake Ridge, we were not far from the actual midpoint. So Rattlesnake Ridge, this was a good one too. This one is the one I'm sure you remember, Warren, where we went all the way down, and we just we get in there and you just keep going down, 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 and then eventually you go all the way back up. And that one was fun. I was following an old dude on an even older husky. Yeah, that was cool. It was, I just heard that old 2-stroke humming along with that older guy on it, knowing that he was having a blast with it probably. So that's another good one where we go down in there and just kind of, that one was fun. It's the one that was familiar, but I really like it. And I remember doing it last year thinking, geez, we're really spending a lot of time going downhill. We were pretty high up on the road. At some point, we're going to have to climb up. This year, knowing that we went all the way down, that we came all the way up was fine. I actually have the terrain map up right now looking at it, and it looks like this starts at about 1,600 feet. The bottom of it is about 400 feet. And then you come right back up to about 1,600 feet. So yeah, you pretty much lose all that altitude and gain it right back. So, but it is the mountains and it is the forest. So anyway, and then after,
I think the most memorable, one of the most was that I don't know, you guys are psyching me out on about that 3 miles of hell or whatever you call it.
3 mile trail. Yep.
3 mile trail. And honestly, the way you guys were talking, I was expecting large, gigantic boulders and climbing up them, and because I don't know. And then honestly, it wasn't as hard as I thought you guys had psyched me up it would be. I mean, it was difficult if you've never ridden before or anything, but it was, it was an unbelievable amount of rocks.
Yes.
There was hardly any trail that wasn't a rock, honestly. So
yeah, that's about right.
It was pretty fun. It was definitely a workout, and if your suspension is garbage, it probably would be really painful to do. But
and that's your thing. There's a ton of guys out there that refuse to listen to anybody else's advice, and they're running some crappy DOT tire because they think they need a DOT tire because they're riding on the road and they want a DOT tire, and then they go in the woods and that tire is absolute garbage. And then they're running a regular standard tube in the Pennsylvania rocks, and they have to run 15 or 18 psi so they don't get a pinch flat. So their tires are just spinning on everything. Their sag isn't set up because they don't change springs for their weight. They'll just crank the sag or crank the spring. Their bikes are just not set up, and they're all over the place. They're stuck. They're struggling. and they're, and they think that's like a normal thing, a normal ride, and then they bail out like and only do half a ride or something like that because
Right.
they don't have a freaking clue. They don't listen to anybody, and it's just it's ridiculous.
I
Tell
totally
us
agree with
what
you
you know
because
about it.
Yeah,
oh, go ahead.
that's
yeah.
one of my rants.
Yeah, that's what I was just.
That-
No, I
that's,
agree with
that's, that's why on my YouTube channel, Chris is called the Tire Nazi. So that is.
you.
Well, some guy, like I see a guy wipe out right in front of me, and they'll get up. Like one guy was on a beta, and I don't know what tires on the beta, but the knobbies are like a quarter of an inch tall. And you could look. I felt I pushed down on the tire, and the thing's hard as a rock. And I'm like, how much pressure you got in there? His freaking answer, I don't know. Whatever my mechanic set up.
Oh my God.
Jesus Christ! Really? Your mechanic put air in the tire, or did he put a new tire on for you and pump it up to 30 psi to set the beads and give it to you, and you didn't check the pressure? It's like that, and it's not just one guy. It's a ton of guys that are doing that.
Well, I
It
think
sounds
like
like it's
Alan said, I think those are the guys that just, they're all cool and then they can only do about half the event and then they got to go home because.
I think there's a lot of
you
people
know.
do that event and they only do they only do parts of it. Maybe it's a Continental TKC 70, which looks like what came stock on my KTM, and I would never try to ride off road with that stuff.
Yeah,
I honestly, I was there. I learned my lesson. I had a DRZ 400 at the Monkey Butt 100 my first year, and I learned a horrible, painful lesson.
you were that guy with a crappy tire at 15
I was,
psi.
exactly, but I didn't stay in the same spot though. Like I learned from my mistake, and and
Like I do.
and even from Roar last year, because I had a real tough time last year at Roar because it's just as rocky at the Roar event, and my suspension was not set up for it. But this time with this event, my suspension was set up right. And actually, it was Chris. You were helpful. You sent me a bunch of videos about setting the suspension up and getting the front forks even with the rear, but when you push down in the middle of the bike, and that actually made a huge difference. And that's why the rocks were kind of like they were challenging, but they weren't wearing me out. The bike wasn't working me. I was working the bike. So that's huge difference though this year in the rocks.
Yeah, I felt the same way. I mean, I felt like it was challenging, but it wasn't impossible. It wasn't anything you couldn't do. It was just, like it's one of those things is what I kind of learned early on is that some stuff just sucks and there's no there's no easy way around it.
Like the ones they have the A's and maybe some of the B pluses, I wouldn't send newbies down, but
no, yeah, definitely not.
Yeah.
So we did Rattlesnake Ridge, and then we came to Grave Ridge, which I thought that was pretty hard. I mean, that's the one that you were talking about, Warren, that had the twisty. There's just rocks everywhere. That's also the one that has the twisty uphill. And then you come around the twisty uphill. And I remember very specifically 2021, I come up that twisty uphill and I got it. And I was celebrating. I was so pumped. And then we come to that section where there's two giant freaking boulders and you got to find a way between them. Turns out there's a line right up the middle though. So I knew that was there, and that's the line I took this year, and I had no trouble. So.
Yeah, I went on the right, like towards the top there. I was like in the middle right, kind of. So I noticed I saw a bunch of riders on the left side, like they were like whatever stuck or but everybody's helping each other. I
believe that was where we also saw. I think we also saw Andy, and I think her name is. I'm trying to remember her name. It's Sue, I think it is, from Heavy Enduro. He was the guy riding the Teniere T7. He rode all the options on it.
Oh my gosh, that guy was insane! I can't believe it.
He's a young guy. He's a young guy. He's a talented rider, and he sets up in his Teniere to basically be a big dirt bike. So they did pretty well. She was on like a KTM, and I think an older KTM 2-stroke with a Kickstarter. So I don't know exactly. How which bike that is, but I mean that seems more appropriate than a Teniere T7. I mean he's got the thing armored up and the suspension set up and the tires and everything. So I guess if you set it up like a dirt bike, it's probably okay. The interesting thing, because I was curious about this and I looked it up. The interesting thing about those bikes is that those bikes run a spoked wheel, and they run an 18-inch front and an 18-inch rear and a 21-inch front. So they kind of are big dirt bikes. That's much different than like even something like a V-Strom that runs,
Well, honestly, that tire size right there makes all the difference in any rocks because you notice the mountain bikes, the bigger the tire, you roll over the rocks easier. It's just all physics and stuff like that. So,
and those tire sizes also mean you can run standard dirt bike tires on it because it's got everything. It's got what you want. So, It makes sense.
I'm still never running a 10 or 8 at an event like that.
Yeah, I wouldn't either. I wouldn't either. But yeah, it says it's the standard. The stock front is a 90/90 R21, which is a pretty standard size, and the rear is a 150/70 R18.
They make Trackmasters in that size?
No.
Maybe we could get Andy from Heavy Enduro on, and he could talk to us about that. So right after you finish that, and you get back to the road, and you do some more roads, some more dirt roads, and then you eventually end up at trying to find. Hold on. You eventually end up at 3 Mile, and this is the one that we talked about. This is probably gets the most press out of all of them, because it's where the big rocks are. And it's slow, but the good news is
it's very slow.
it's slow. And actually I mentioned that we ran into, I'm going to say their names again, and I hope they're right, that we ran into Andy and Sue. I think she was in front of them, and we kind of got stuck behind her because she kept stalling. But I mean, she's a tiny girl on a Kickstart bike. So
I was impressed. I was very impressed.
She's a very good rider. Yeah. We met them like 2 years ago, and they rode street bikes for a long time, and then they switched.
Tell you what, my skid plate got quite the workout on that one. Oh my gosh. Bang.
So I actually tracked this on my Apple Watch this time because I was curious. It took us like 26 or 27 minutes to get through there. And it's challenging, but I mean, I don't know, it's 27 minutes of challenge, and then you get a year of stories out of it. So like, how long have we spent talking about it? So it's a good one. And the other thing, the good thing is that it gets run 2 ways depending on the year. Last year they ran it what I'm going to call uphill, which means you start at where we ended this year, and I think that's actually a lot harder than the way we ran it this year. This year we started in the easy part which is what we did 2 years ago. We're like, oh, this isn't so bad, okay, and then you get a mile and you're like, what the hell is this? But last year we ran it uphill and I thought it was a little bit more challenging, but it may have just been me. Maybe I'm just getting that much better at riding. I guess I'll get back to you next year on that. After that, you do some more dirt road, and the next option is Pole Bridge to Reg Trail. This is the only one that we missed because by the time we got there, it was like 3:40 or something. It was closed by the time we got there. They had closed it. I'm not sure.
Oh, I was so mad too. I was like, man, there's one change what this whole event I would do is keep the options open just a little longer.
I put it in the survey feedback, and I'm not sure.
Yeah, I did as well.
Maybe they can talk about that when they come in. But the good news is we did miss that one, but we got to Reg Trail, which is the next one, and that's again not much further down the line. Pretty much.
I was the last one. Yeah, the guy literally just closed it.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that. That's interesting. I did not realize that. So good. So we were last one. I didn't feel
we just made it.
I didn't feel like we were going that slow. We must have been because we were just slow.
No, we had a ton of people behind us, and we didn't break for lunch very long either. Like we did not take breaks throughout the day. And
I know. I guess we just must have been too slow.
You guys suck. No.
Chris would have been through. He would have been eating lunch at the Sheets near the fairgrounds because he would have been done so fast. Got to win that trophy at the dual sport, right?
It's just the buffet at the end. That's all.
Yeah.
No trophy. It's just the food. And for Michaux, it's the ice cream at the end. Yeah. That's what makes me ride fast.
So I will confess that by the time we got to Ridge Trail, I was about done. It had been, like 8-ish hours on a motorcycle. My arms were shot. We mentioned the other issue I was having. I was just kind of whooped out. But we still did it anyway. And it was cool, so we did that.
Nice trail. Yeah.
That's nice. Yep.
They had a nice hill climb there too, a nice rocky hill climb there.
Yep.
And,
yep. Yeah, and then the main trail goes through. I know that I don't think I saw very many people doing this. We'll talk about this again. Never mind. So you finish Midnight Ridge, and then you just go back into town, and you go back into you do what I like to call the victory lap. So like you're doing all the options. It's nothing but pavement, and you go back to the fairgrounds. I call that the victory lap. It's like the hard part's over. We're just gonna motor on back into town and go relax. And actually, this is the part where you ride right alongside Route 81. So at this point, it's like 4:00 in the afternoon, and on a Saturday, and people are just going about their business, traveling up and down the highway, going to Maryland or wherever they're doing. And just dirt bikes come along the highway there. So not on the highway. Maybe we'll try that next year. Maybe they should add a jump over the 4 lanes of the highway.
but yeah, and then we finished up the day, and I think we finished, it was around, I remember actually, because I remember Adam's wife was with us, and she dropped us off, and then she disappeared for a little while and came back, and it was like 4:45 when we got back. So that was good. It was a good, they did a little meal thing afterwards, and then we kind of, went and did our own thing. But yeah, I would say it was another successful event. And I like to change to
100%.
Saturday. I like to change to Saturday a lot. So hopefully they keep it that way. And then maybe they'll even keep the time. I mean, the time seemed to work well too, So
Yeah, they start nice and early.
yes, this is true.
Not this 10 o'clock bullshit like some places.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they have the day they did it on is like one of the days with the most daylight out of the year. But it was still nice because we were still done. Like we were done and back at we were done, fed, and made a quick stop on our way back, and we're still back at our place that we were staying at by like 7 o'clock. So
The food was great too at the end too. They did a great job with the food. So.
Yep. Yeah, they did a good job all around. These guys really keep it together. I know the ice cream vendor didn't show up, so they had a frozen lemonade and a smoothie guy. That worked well enough for me. I didn't really know the difference. So yeah, everything was good. Yeah, so I think the overall summary is it was a fun event, and big thumbs up to
I thought it was awesome.
Marco, Liz, Morgan, the crew at DVTR. There's a bunch of names I don't know. Pigpen, I think your name is. Guessing that's not his real name. But and there's a whole group of people, and we're probably missing most of them. So, but it was cool. It was a really good event there. So June was kind of busy.
Next year.
Yeah, definitely for sure. You get on your computer at 7:01 and make sure you're ready to go. That's how we've gotten in the last couple of years. Or like I said, sponsor it, get in there somehow, some other way. That's another possibility. So gonna real quick recap some other stuff that happened in June. I did so after doing Michaux, coming home, I actually had that Monday off. It was Juneteenth, so I had Monday off. That Saturday I had my daughter's dance recital, and then Sunday I went and did Thrills in the Hills. I did it basically by myself, not by myself, with a bunch of guys that I had just met that day because I wanted to ride it and I needed somebody to ride with. Adam wasn't going. He had that weekend off because he had been running around the entire month of June doing stuff like this. So I rode down to the Atlanta Fire Company, met up with some guys and did Thrills in the Hills. And it was interesting. It's definitely no Michaux. There's no single track. But it's fun to try to do that stuff on a 450-pound adventure bike.
What bike did you do that on?
I did that on the V-Strom.
Oh,
so
okay, yeah. I did the route Thrills in the Hills. I did the GPX files before. It's a pretty ride.
Yeah, it's a good ride, and it's one of the roads had just been freshly oiled. Which is one of the dirt roads had just been freshly oiled. I guess they oil them to keep the dust down. That's a little tricky with what was basically 80% street tires. The rest of it was fine, but it was a little tricky. So one of the guys I was riding with that I had just met that day, he was on the guys had some really cool bikes, and he had I think it was a Tiger 900. And he was following me. He said that he's like, hey, you look like you're riding pretty well on that thing. And all I could do was just shrug my shoulders and say, yeah, I'm just riding like a KTM. I don't know. So I think that's it for Thrills in the Hills. It was a fun ride. And then I didn't really do anything. Quick story about my vacation that I wanted to mention, because I mentioned I was on vacation. I was on vacation July 5th to 12th. I went to Ohio to do a bunch of sightseeing. Who cares? But one thing that did happen is that we drove all the way to Columbus, Ohio, with the intention of going to the AMA Motorcycle Museum on our first day there. And that was basically the only reason we went to Columbus. So we drove all the way there, 6.5 hours one way, and we get to Columbus and check in a hotel and everything's fine. Some of the worst thunderstorms that I've seen in recent years just kind of hung out over Columbus for about 3 or 4 hours the middle of that night. And as a result, it knocked out power. You say, okay, no big deal, knocked out power for a couple hours. No, it knocked out power to the museum for the entire day.
Figures.
No.
So we drove all the way to, that's right, Warren doesn't know the story, Chris already knows it, but we drove all the way to Columbus to go to the motorcycle museum, and the museum was closed. We did not get to the museum. Very nice people, though. They gave me like 3 free passes, so if I ever get down there again, I'll get to see it. One thing I did get to see that was motorcycle related, though, was Iron Pony Motorsports. We went there instead. They had power on that side of town. The museum's to the east of the city, and Iron Pony's to the north. They had power where Iron Pony is, and Iron Pony's amazing. It's huge. It's like a Walmart and BJ's combined of motorcycles. They literally have everything you could possibly imagine in that store. They even had a ton of bikes, which is surprising because there's like no stock at all, right? But yeah, they had a ton of bikes. So
Wow, that's incredible.
yeah, I think that a couple of us might need to go to Columbus just to go to the museum and go to Iron Pony.
Yeah, for sure. I'm in.
Yeah. See, that's all it takes. It's just like, let's go. Okay. Maybe that'll be a good winter activity. Maybe not winter, but like, March or something. But yeah, so we did that. They had some cool stuff there. Like they even had the little CRF. I think I'm going to screw up the CRF 5E, I believe it's called, the electric equivalent of the CRF 50, basically. That was there. It's only $3,000. I know people don't like electric bikes. I'm not sure if it matters what we think. They're coming, so we might as well get used to them. And it was kind of neat. I mean, they had all kinds of bikes there: adventure bikes, dirt bikes, a lot of Chinese bikes, which I guess is kind of a thing now. For some reason, the Chinese manufacturers are the only ones that can build bikes, and they had a lot of them. And I swear I didn't even do this on purpose. But while we're talking about Chinese bikes, how's that for a transition?
Nice.
These Chinese communist bikes. You mean these things that crap plastic that feels like a toy, or the hardware that the chrome flakes off and they strip out with some cheesy Phillips screws and they're like cross-threaded in from the factory? Them kind of bikes?
Yes, those
Not
ones.
the bike, it's the rider, Chris.
Yeah. So what I will say is that so Warren knows a lot about GPX bikes, and we actually talked about this in Shippensburg. So this discussion was kind of had already between myself and Warren and Adam. But what Chris was getting at is that there are a lot of stereotypes about Chinese bikes. And there's a lot of Chinese bikes for sale now, and this is the way a lot of people are going to get into sport. Again, like it or not, like this is the way it's going to happen for a lot of people. And I will say what I've always heard people say about Chinese bikes. Then you can tell us if this applies to GPX or not. What I've heard is that the quality is very poor. They are like slapped together, half-assed, reverse-engineered designs of usually of Japanese motors that have gone out of copyright. And that they're kind of like, you might have like a Honda engine and like a frame that's modeled off of a Yamaha. So you can sort of make parts fit, but it's always a guessing game to find out what exactly you need. And then you might buy one
metal that just like snaps like a twig.
Yeah. And then you might buy one from some shitty manufacturer. Like I think there's one called Ice Bear or some garbage like that. That then ends up going out of business in like a month, and then you can't get parts for it. So what in relation to the stereotypes about Chinese bikes that Chris and I very obviously talked about, where does GPX fit in all that? Because I know it's obviously not like that. Just to be clear, even though some people say it is.
Well, no, because I mean Warren does all the rides that we do on, and there's no way some China piece of shit is going to be able to go through that and not break down or break in half. Because I've seen them like at a 50 track at say Area 51. I've seen these Chinese things break in half many times. Or the tires, the wheels grenade, or the frame cracks. Just stupid stuff like that you would expect from some piece of crap Chinese thing.
Mm-hmm.
So the GPX? I mean, it's pretty impressive that it even makes it through that, and plus it keeps going. So.
Yep.
I would say that the stereotype is well earned for sure.
It's fair.
But I mean, honestly, you could go back in time, go back to the 80s and 70s and even early 90s, and people were saying that about the Jap stuff. Mm-hmm. Not Hondas and stuff like that, but I mean, I remember that same argument. Was well earned with a lot of the Japanese stuff, but the Japanese got their shit together, and then now their stuff is like the best, Yep. But I wouldn't say that the Chinese have done that per se like the Japanese, because they got some different stuff going on there. But but I will say that as far as GPX goes, they kind of broke the mold, and I think a lot of that has to do with GPX. The main headquarters is out of Utah. Right near Salt Lake, and Gary is the owner, and he basically
is that Salt Lake, China?
Salt Lake, China. Yeah, I know, right?
Salt Lake City, China, very well known place.
Okay.
Well, he actually specs the bikes out to how he wants them and stuff like that. So there's like kind of like a base kind of platform, and he GPX is actually in, I want to say, Brazil. It's in Russia, and now it's in the UK just recently within the last year. The UK and US are pretty much identical. I can't speak for the Brazil, but I know the Russian counterpart is like they spec out like cheap junk on them and stuff like that. And so Gary will spec out exactly. He wants like the good rims, the good tires, the billet parts, all that stuff. So honestly, with the GPX though, I cannot find a part on there that is junk. Honestly, like the plastics are not brittle and they break, or the bolts don't snap off. And to be honest with you, I know for a fact that a lot of some of the parts on these bikes are coming from the same factories as where all the other manufacturers are getting their stuff from. And so, it's just they stamp a different name on it or whatever. Like I'm pretty sure that the rims, my rims are Warp 9 rims. I'm pretty sure they're unbranded. Where I remember being in Utah, and right next to Everride, he's another YouTuber, great YouTuber. But he had some Warp 9 rims on, and I was looking with mine right next to his, and they are identical, like in every single way. And I had heard that before, so.
Yeah, I mean, we kind of know, especially the last 2 years, we've kind of learned that like supply chain, and I don't know, I'm not an expert in supply chain. It's not my business, not my job, but basically the supply chain usually means that there's one or two people that build everything and everyone else buys it to build other stuff. So that makes sense. That a lot of the parts would come from there.
Right. And, and I talked to the guy from GPX, Harlan, was at the Michaux main event there. And I was talking to him, and I was like, how you doing? You selling a lot of bikes? He goes, yeah, actually we are. And it's because we're the only ones that can get bikes.
Yeah.
And that's a huge thing. And that's so during after COVID, or people were just looking for stuff to get into. And unfortunately there were no bikes because there's nothing available. So GPX people were kind of forced to give a second look, like where, hey, maybe the stereotype doesn't apply. And they had to and that's kind of why I do my YouTube channel, is to kind of help guys out and to, because I was the same way when I first bought my first one. I was like trying to look whatever videos that were out there. A lot of garbage videos out there, a couple okay ones, and so that's kind of why I decided to do that, just to kind of give back to the community and do like real reviews. I'm honest with what I think about them, and I think they get you 80-85% there. Compared to a KTM or a Husqvarna or a Beta, you know what I mean? Obviously, you're going to buy the Beta, Husqvarna, or KTM, and it's an $11,000-$12,000 bike. And you're going to get some pretty awesome suspension, all that stuff, and great engines, and all that stuff. But GPX will get you most of the way there. The suspension I think it's actually really good. It's comparable to the WPs. Not, I wouldn't say quite as good, but pretty darn comparable. And the engines they're not clone engines. They're a lot of people. That's what also sets GPX apart, is that the engines are in-house design. Like there's they use a lot of the engines are Zhongchen, which is they make more engines than anybody in the world. There's more Zhongchen engines out there, so you can get parts for them super easy. And I know that the 300, 450, and the 250 air-cooled, which I have now, are they're in-house design. I think I want to say a European company I heard helped them design the 300 engine. So, but they're rock solid, reliable. The one two-stroke bike they have, they bought the rights to the old Yamaha DT 230 engine. So they bought the line for it from Yamaha. So they bought the rights for it. That is a nice little engine. But as far as quality performance, I mean, they're not they're not like crazy like KTM, like loop you over wheelie machines, but they have the engines are very like linear. I would say they're very torquey. The 4-stroke engines have a like gobs of torque. Horsepower is somewhere in the middle. Like my current one is a 250 air cooled. It's like an updated XR engine, but better.
Yep.
It has more usable power and better, more torque than an XR did. And and I know that the liquid cooled engines are they're very throaty, torquey. I mean, you could pop wheelies with them, but they just don't wheelie as easy as a KTM or whatever. But very linear and controllable, I would say. So they're good for a beginner rider and an advanced rider. So it's kind of best of both worlds.
Just to give some perspective on the price versus quality thing, because I know we mentioned it. So I just pulled some stuff up while we were talking here, and so a 2022 Husky TX 300i, which is like the cross country model, basically, right? I think that's not the one with the headlight. Not even the one with the freaking headlight. Hold on. I was doing some research and I pulled up the wrong thing. Basically like a brand new Husky, a brand new KTM. So it's 2023 because 2022s are all gone probably. So 5-star cycle down in Sagertown, PA, which is south of Erie. So that's a lot of guys in Rochester buy bikes there. And in 2023, and this is one that does not add on a bunch of fees and charge you for freight and charge you for walking in the door and hit you with all kinds of nonsense. This is a guy who pretty much, Phil down there will pretty much give you straight what the price is on it. That's why he sells more bikes than almost anybody in the region. 2023 KTM 300 XCW enduro bike, like what we rode to do the Michaux ride. It's going to run you $11,099, right? That's like pretty standard. Bet it might cost you a little less than as a carburetor. I mean, it's got weird suspension. So KTM 2023 300 XCW, $11,000, right? Figure by the time you register it, almost 12 because you got to pay tax and all that nonsense. A Husky, and I don't know if this is the right one or not, Warren. And if it is, please correct me. But a TSE 300L, which is two-stroke GPX bike, which I think is roughly equivalent.
That's is not even out yet, but yeah.
Okay, all right, it's on their website. So when it's out, $6,900. So you're basically you're saving, I don't know, thousands of dollars to get into the sport. And I can tell you right now that if you're going to buy you could get a used 300 XCW for that price, but it's going to be a couple years old. So I can see the case for it.
Well, I would start at the 250E because that gets you in. That's a 250 air cooled. I think that I want to say that one's like $4,500.
Yeah, that sounds right. That's
yep. And then I think the 300 liquid cooled, the 300R. I want to say that starts at $6 or $65 now. And unfortunately, they would be even a better bargain right now if it wasn't for the shipping container prices. Because I was talking to Gary from GPX, the owner. And he used to pay about, I don't know, $6,000-$7,000 for a container, a couple of years ago. Well, they're like $25,000 for a container now. Yep. So unfortunately, with all the inflation going on and all the garbage and, and I actually had a great conversation with him about the tariffs, because, that affects unfortunately, that affects a lot of small businesses, and because a lot of the larger companies like Apple and other companies can get away with it because they just move their crap over to Taiwan or wherever, and they ship it from there. Or they have ways of skirting the tariffs, and so basically, they companies smaller companies GPX, they're going to end up eating the tariffs and then the shipping container costs. So unfortunately the bargains would be, I bet you they'd be $1,000 less right now if it wasn't for all that stuff.
Oh, okay. See, I didn't know that.
But they still are a bargain though. I mean, you think about it, I could buy 2 of these bikes for one of, don't get me wrong, if money was no object and I wanted to buy my dream bike, I'd probably buy a Beta right now,
Yep.
But I'm having just as many smiles as you guys, you know what I mean? And
makes sense. Yeah, I mean, I did say you were on my tail pretty much the whole day. So, or you were on Adam's tail actually pretty much the whole day.
Chris hit the nail on the head. There's no way that some piece of crap bike could be doing what I do with these and keep up. A lot of times the bike is limited by me because of my riding ability, not because I just
agree. Yeah, I'd agree. Yeah, my abilities is the number one limitation too. As mine and Chris's mutual friend Andrew would say, well, the bike can do it, you just can't, which is pretty
I
much.
beat the crap out of these bikes, man. I really do. I really beat the crap out of them. Honestly, like sometimes I'll break a plastic every now and then, or like I'll a couple years ago the monkey butt. I'll Tom Bank will stop on a hill and I'll hit it. My radiator will be his fenders in my radiator or whatever like that. But I beat the crap out of these bikes. They're just they're very reliable and parts are very easy to get. For the most part, Gary has a lot of all the parts in stock most times. A lot of supply chain issues obviously these days, but the parts are pretty affordable. There are some interchangeable parts. You had mentioned the clone stuff. I would the frames on these bikes, they're all similar. There's like five or six Enduro models. The frames are similar to a Husqvarna frame. Like if you look at the swing arm and stuff like that, very similar to Husqvarna. But I would say it's not truly a clone, because if it was a clone, I would be able to buy just Husqvarna frame parts, and some parts are interchangeable. Like the torque specs on certain bolts and stuff like that are very similar, but the engine mounts are different. Like skid plates don't always interchange because the frames are slightly different. So they're not really clones. They're just. I think they took it as a start here approach, and they built a bike around it. The only part that is really, the forks are interchangeable. They're not clone forks and shocks, but they are interchangeable with a KTM or a Husqvarna forks, which is actually is great, because you get if you wanted to upgrade to a WP or whatever, you could. All the similar bearings and things like that, which makes it nice for parts and stuff like that. You don't always have to order from GPX for everything. So, but
makes sense.
As far as clone, there really isn't any. None of the engines are clone engines. I have had a Chinese bike before. Years ago, I had a Hawk 250, and that's based off like a Honda.
That's the stuff we were talking about earlier.
Yeah, it was based off like a Honda GC 230 engine or something like that. It's like an old pushrod engine or something like that. But I actually had one of those, and for what it was, if you were ride some dirt roads and no off-roading, yeah, I could see it. But but yeah. So as far as cloning, there really is no cloning on this. Some of the parts are similar, but it really does. It's not like a copy, as per se.
Right, makes sense. Yeah, I think it's important to note too that, like, as much as we were ranting about the Chinese made stuff earlier, like, well, your iPhone is made in China. The Apple Mac that I'm using to do this on is made in China. So it's one of those things that they are pretty good at building someone else's thing to spec, I guess is what I'm getting at. And I noticed some weirdness with some of them too, like, but I know that they're still kind of heavy. And I know that, like, your bike has radiator louvers, even though there's no radiator, but it's just for looks. But so there's stuff, but it sounds like for the right person, for the right use case, it's a fit. So, and that's totally fine.
Oh yeah. Because
that's kind of cool.
They get to use the same plastics and frame, and that's kind of why they did that for that. But all the other bikes do have radiators. But it's communists suck. I hope they all die. Whatever, all that stuff. I love America. And all that stuff. And it's true. But unfortunately, Pandora's box is open, and I would say try to buy American when you can, but a lot of times you can't.
It's really tricky for sure.
It's very tricky.
Sure. Yep.
If there was one critique I would make on those bikes, would be the way they name things. Like, what's the name of the suspension on your bike, Warren?
STZ.
Okay, because there was another one that was like Good Boy or something weird, and your typical.
They used to have Fast Ace suspension.
Fast Ace or something. They got to change. That's just screams Chinese piece of shit.
Right. I agree. And here's a good example of why GPX is pretty awesome, because every single model year they upgrade stuff, they update stuff, add features, and quality is. I've had 3 different model years, and every year has been really great improvements and noticeable quality even. But they went from Fast Ace. Here's a perfect example of that, because they were really hard to get parts for. And so they ditched it because of that. and which is great to see. So they went with like their own design, the SCZ. Well, I guess I learned the other day that the SCZ is like some enduro enthusiast in China. I guess that's some guy's name or something like that.
Oh,
That's
okay.
what I heard. That's what I heard. So I was like, oh, you learn something new every day. So that's kind of like their in-house branding, I guess and that's where that kind of comes from. But you're right, Chris. Yeah, we hear like fast taste, like like taste good Chinese restaurant. Like what?
Yeah.
It just sounds a little silly.
Yeah, I would agree. But as far as the other name, I like the name GPX. I like how they name their models.
Yeah, that's fine.
I think it's funny. I was riding yesterday with a bunch of my other buddies. I got to ride a KDX 220, which is really nice bike. Really, it's supposed to be one of the best dual sports of the day, or whatever that, nice little 2-stroke engine on there. But it took me a while to get used to the bike, and because the frames felt smaller, it just felt different, and I got used to it. But after hopping back on my bike, I just felt at home and just confident, and the bikes they're probably about 20 pounds heavier, so 25 pounds heavier than like your KTM that's 219 pounds dry or whatever. But they run about, I think they're about 245 ish dry, the GPXs, but that's manageable. I can pick the bike off the trail pretty easy. It doesn't feel super heavy to me.
Okay. Cool. So I think the short version is, like for the right use case, it's good, and you just kind of go with it. So this is just so anyone listening knows, this is we did not get paid to talk about any of this stuff. Our opinions are our own. So if you want to go accusing us of that, feel free, but it's not true.
I get accused of working for GPX from people. You're sponsored by. I'm like, really? Because I really would like to see my W2s or whatever.
Yeah.
Right.
So the other thing I want to get into is, and we'll just all kind of stay in for this. I actually record this with Adam, but we're just doing it now. What's going on and what's coming up? That's the other bit that we like to do.
Hancock.
But yeah, Hancock is August 6th, 7. It's already sold out, just in case anyone wants to get in. But the good news is that you can probably still find a way in. Somebody's probably got a ticket they can't sell because they got a wedding to go to, or they got some other shit they have to do, or they're hurt. So you can probably find one somehow. Not sure how, but
or they don't have a set of balls and only ride the first day, and you could probably ride the second day for them.
Exactly. So there you go. See, it's a 2-day event. It's really hard.
Right.
And so I don't know. I haven't done it yet, and I'm not
never done it. So this might be my first year. I'll be riding with Chris and the gang here. So that'll be fun.
Good friggin' luck.
I hear it's a good ride.
Cool.
It's an excellent ride. Make sure you have brand new non-DOT tires that are good for off-road. Even though you're riding on the road, F the DOT.
All right.
Think about traction in
DRZ,
dirt.
DRZ 400 with Bridgestone Trail Links. Got it.
And you're definitely going to need a dirt bike, not a dual sport bike.
Adventure bike. Got it.
Half worn down 525, so they're going to have to do.
So that one's August 6th, 7. If you want to get in, you still can. September 9, 10 is the Seven Mountains Dual Sport. The three of us were literally just talking about this a couple hours ago. That's in Bald Eagle State Forest area, Pennsylvania Trail Riders. So I don't know if that one sold out. I know they had like a 300 rider limit.
No, it is sold out.
It is sold out. Okay.
Waiting list. My buddy Back Out Bob backed out of the ride. So
okay, gotcha. Okay, so that one sold out too. So if you want to find a way in, I think there's a PA Trail Riders group on Facebook. There's probably a way in. All these events sell out because they all have rider limits, and they all fill up quick. Speaking of dual sport events that may or may not sell out, Monkey Butt 100. This is in our backyard. If you're in the Rochester area, this is Wayne County Motorcycle Club. This is a big one. 2-day event, September 17, 18. This one also has a 300 rider limit. Last year I believe it was mandatory 2-day. This year they're going to have both one day and 2 days to ride. I think the 2-day has a 300 rider limit. The one day does not. So you could ride Saturday, you could ride Sunday, you could ride Saturday and Sunday. You do whatever you want. Takes off from the same spot as last year on Route 88 in Newark, which is Mr. Charlie Hill's farm. I made sure I wrote his name down because he lets the club launch from his field every year, and it's awesome that he does that. So thank you, Charlie Hill. That's September.
Right down the street from the Fairville.
Yes. Yep.
Fire department.
Right down the street
That
from
is
the fire
a
department.
great
Correct.
event. I think it's one of the best events around, and it's just great trails. Very flowy, single track, lots of hill climbs. I mean, if you like hill climbs, Monkey Butt is your deal.
Yeah, it is for sure. There's some good hill climbs. You wouldn't think we have those kind of elevation changes here, but we do. The other thing is I know that this podcast will get posted on the DVTR Facebook group. You're going to look at a map and go, Newark, New York, that's like 6 hours from Philly. I don't want to drive all the way up there. You should, because it's a cool event.
It's worth it. Totally worth it.
Yep.
Totally worth it. Plus, you get a garbage plate.
You get to have a
after the
garbage
ride.
plate. Yes, which, speaking as someone who's not from Rochester, I think garbage plates are disgusting. Others may not agree, though.
Take it back.
I can't take it back. I look at it, I'm just like, oh, I gag. But anyway, so other stuff going on. WNYM, actually, I don't want to do that one yet. Hold up. NOAA, New York Off-Road Hare Scramble Series. Black Sky Hare Scramble is August 7th, and I actually wrote down the addresses for this and where they are, just so I wasn't reading off stuff. Black Sky is August 7th, 1713 Cafferty Road, Harpersville, New York. It's northeast of Binghamton. That's where that one is. The 14th of August, there's nothing going on except the Unadilla Pro National, so no one's got any local events on that date. And then August 21st, Baldwin Trail Riders NOAA Hare Scramble at 35 Thrope Road, Lowman, New York, is basically northeast of Elmira, is where that one is. And then WNYMA has Moto Masters on August 7th. Empire State MX has Area 51 on August 7th. So Chris Mosier, the hardest working man in motocross, we talked to him last year. It's an episode from last June with Chris where you can get an insight into what he does. Our Chris that we're talking to right now knows Mosier pretty well. Mosier is an absolute machine. He just works more than anyone I've ever heard of. He'll be busting his ass to bring you another great race on August 7th. So check that out. And then, as I said, Unadilla Pro National is the 14th, so nobody's doing anything. Unless you're going to Unadilla to watch, party, hang out, whatever it is. Go watch some of our locals. Blaze Kermaldi and Trevor Schmidt are racing the pro circuit this year. They will probably be at Unadilla. And they have been doing pretty well from what I understand too. And then August 21st, King of the Hill at couple details about that event. So there's a lot going on for that. As I mentioned before, I sit on the board of Hogback, so I know kind of what's going on at this event. Couple things, we need flaggers for that event. So if you want to flag, get in contact with somebody from the club, comment on the page, message Facebook page, whatever you want to do. If you're local and you want to flag both days, please come. Last event, we had 15 flaggers signed up for Sunday and only 8 of them showed up. Not cool. So we need flaggers. It's $90 for the day, $70 for Saturday, $90 for Sunday. If you want to flag, get out there. If you want to get into the club for 2023, showing up and flagging, and even showing up and flagging is a good way to let people know you want to work. So do that, please.
You get paid, and you got the best seat of the house.
Oh yeah,
we're right on the track.
Right on the track. Some spots are better than others, but yeah, I mean, you definitely get the best seat in the house. You get to watch racing all day, and you get paid. And if it's hot, you can stand out in the sun. Bring sunscreen and a hat. But yeah, definitely show up for that. We don't want to have to be short on flaggers. Other event details. There's going to be raffle baskets. There's going to be a pit decorating contest for both day and night. So yeah, pimp out your pits, guys, because there's going to be a contest. There will be prizes. I'm not sure if we know what they are yet, so I'm going to keep quiet on that. On Sunday, I believe at intermission there is going to be a vintage race. Which is going to be cool, but the old guys are going to bust out their old bikes and they're going to race them. I know Adam is going to bring his KTM 1983 KTM 250 Alphabet Soup. He's going to run that around the track, so you get to see that thing run. He's had that for years and years and years, and it still runs. We talked about that in our episode of how we all got into the sport. And I'm sure others will be there. Ben Atkinson probably has something he's working on right now to run out there. And I'm sure other guys will be out there on YZ250s, even though a 1999 and a 2022 are the exact same bike. Other thing about Hogback is that there are new pit bike rules, new pit vehicle rules for this race. So and I don't think that anyone listening to this is actually involved in this, so it's probably just wasting my breath. But they had some problems with pit vehicles last race. People doing what I'll just frankly call stupid shit, like, driving too fast in the pits, riding around in other parts of the woods, riding around the woods, riding around in other parts of the property, just doing dumb shit with pit vehicles. The new rule with pit vehicles is you get one warning. But yeah, it should be a great event. It's going to be cool, especially the vintage race and the pit decorating contest. I think that's the stuff that's good for sure. Other stuff going on in Western New York. Loretta Lynn's is coming up. It starts August 2nd, which
Nikki Voorhees is going to be there. I saw she was posted.
Yep. Yeah. Nikki's there. I think it's Nikki's year, man. She has been killing it all year. And I remember when we talked to her, she's like, I want to qualify for Loretta's. And she didn't just qualify. She won her fucking qualifier and won all 3 of her motos. So like, I think Nikki's got it this year. They say that athletes peak in their, in like their mid to late 20s. That's right around Nikki's age. I think she's got it this year. I think she's going to do something big. So good luck to her for sure.
Yeah, it'd be cool to see that happen.
That'd be really cool. I mean, I'm thinking maybe even top 5. I feel weird saying that because I don't want her to hear that and be like, oh my God. But, I think it's definitely possible. Joey Spadaro, who is a kid that's been racing for years. He raced with Adam's son, Braden, years ago. Joey Spadaro is going in 2 classes. He's going in 250B and Schoolboy 1. So keep an eye out for him. Logan Renninger from Warren, PA, who's a Empire State motocross racer. He's in 450C and 250C. Definitely keep an eye out for him. Spencer Burley from Spencerport, New York. He's in 125C and 250C limited. So he'll be there too. And I think that's all of them. So yeah, good luck to all those guys going to Loretta's. I know we talked to Mike Bonacci about that last year, I think. And it kind of gave me a perspective on what it's really about. It's really about just like teaching these kids what a big stage looks like pretty much. And anything else that happens is like bonus. So that is it for this episode. I want to thank Warren for joining us today.
Yeah.
Awesome. Was a
talking to us
pleasure.
about GPXs and everything in between.
Thanks, Chris, for not completely shitting all over them. I know you were holding. I know you were biting your tongue.
He got paid by GPX, so it's all good.
It's all good.
And also thanks to Chris for helping me do this, because I think if I did it by myself, it'd be terrible.
Thanks for having me on. It's always a good time.
All right, you know what we say. We will see you
at the races.
races.